Hello ladies and gentlemen, today we are back in War Thunder looking at the B5N2, which is a tier 4 Japanese naval or torpedo bomber. Now the payload on this thing is quite interesting. You can either have 6 50 kilo bombs, 2 250 kilos, or 1 1000 kilo bomb. And also you can choose torpedoes, either one 838 kilo or a 148 kilo. So even though this thing is a naval or a torpedo bomber, I like to use it as a dive bomber because I believe the ships in this game, they have too much firepower for this plane. Basically one shot it can absolutely destroy this plane, so going after ground targets is a safer bet compared to going after maybe a destroyer which is firing all guns blazing at you. Now for me, I like to think of this thing as a stealth bomber. It's the first stealth bomber I've kind of come across, because you don't have any armament on the front, and what I mean by that, you don't have any machine guns, cannons to shoot with, so you don't have anything to protect yourself. All you have is one turret on the back, so that one turret can hopefully keep you alive. But the problem is, one turret isn't going to do a lot. I mean, if you actually look at my reviews, such as like the H6K or the other medium bombers I've looked at, even 4 guns cannot keep you alive sometimes against fighters, in arcade anyway. Maybe it's different in historical. I have played historical and it is slightly different, but it's still very, very annoying. So as you can see here, I'm basically dive bombing medium tanks because I'm using the 250 kilo bombs. That means I can take out medium tanks. I can basically take out anything on the map with relative ease as long as I'm not going after ships. So I'm going after the high profile targets, the light pillboxes and the tanks. The AA, usually fighters deal with them, so you don't really have to worry about them as a bomber. So as I was talking about before, the stealth bomber thought of this plane, that means every time I do a bombing run, if I am able to, I turn away from fighters. I don't try and engage them. Like with the Stuka, which I would say is quite similar to this plane, I would maybe go after fighters while my bombs are reloading on this bomber. Because you have that firepower with the Stuka. You can either have cannons, machine guns. You don't have great maneuverability, but you have something to defend yourself and help out your allies, which can really turn the tide of a fighter battle. This thing, on the other hand, you can't really do that because, as I've said before, you don't have any forward-facing armaments. So you are very, very restricted in that regard. And also, I stay very, very close to the ground, which makes it harder for enemy fighters to, well, first of all, see me, as we'll see a bit later on. But also, it means that if they are being engaged by fighters, it's harder to tilt their nose down and attack me, especially the Russian aircraft at this tier. They don't have great elevation. So if they do point their nose at the ground, a lot of pilots will just run into the ground. But I have found at this tier, this plane works very well, as long as you get good matchmaking. If you end up in a game with tier 6 fighters, such as like the Spitfire Mark IIB, Yaks, even like IL-2s, you will get pretty much decimated quite fast, because this plane does follow the idea of the Japanese planes, where they're very nimble, very maneuverable, but they are very lightly armoured. And some of them are undergunned. Obviously this thing is completely undergunned because all you have is one turret. But, as I said, it's very maneuverable, so you can get out of fights. It's not the fastest plane in the world, but you still, if you're coming from a dive bomb, you can get out of there, which is always nice as a bomber. Just make sure you don't use this in a turning battle or anything like that. Try and go towards places where your fighters are in abundance, so they can try and cover you. Like in this map, as you see, I'm trying to focus on this side of the map, because there first of all are a lot of bombers, so the enemy fighters will go after them, and also there are some fighters in the area which, if needed, they can come in and help me. So as you see here, basically, a lot of the ground targets have been destroyed anyway, but I'm still using the same tactics. I'm still staying close to the ground. I'm still trying to basically make sure that enemy fighters don't really see me. And my turret's going off. I found the turret quite useful, actually, compared to other bombers of this caliber. Because it may be because I've increased the vitality of the gunner, but also it might be to do with the fact that it's quite well armoured at the back. So any machine gun shots or cannons which go into your side will actually go into your rudder instead of your gunner, which is always nice. This plane does have very weak wings though, so just keep that into account if you are trying to outturn things and get away. So right now I've kind of got the problem that a lot of bombers can have in this situation, where there aren't many ground targets left, and I've actually had to go into the enemy base to go after one of the ground targets, which is a cargo ship. But as you can see already, I've gone past about maybe 5, 6, 7 fighters, and I haven't been shot once yet, but now the fighters see me as an easy target, so they go after me, which is fine, because the mission is basically won. I've done my job, I've killed my 5 ground targets, and that's the main thing. It is a bit of a shame that I do sustain some damage, but I was going for something which a bomber should go. I'm going for the ground targets, which is the main thing as a bomber, even if you get shot up a bit. So we did win that battle, which was really good, and hopefully this kind of depicts how you should use the B5N2. It's not just a naval bomber, just take that out of your mind. It can also be used for ground strikes, especially with the 250 kilo bombs and the 1000 kilo. Now I'm just going to show you what the 1000 kilo looks like. It looks completely ridiculous on this plane. There's the two 250s, and if I change it to 1000 kilos, it basically takes up the whole fuselage, which is quite interesting. But anyway, thank you for watching, and have a great day.